Operation Busbound was an initiative that we started while I was a district director in Mexico City. It was headed by our officer in charge in Guatemala. And Operation Busbound was just one of the deterrence efforts that we initiated. They were called disrupt operations. This one was called a deterrence effort in working with foreign governments. And it was Operation Busbound was also one of our effective deterrence measures because what we did, we joined with other Latin American countries, including Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and we formed a partnership. Intended illegal entrants that were destined for the United States, interdicted in Mexico, would be returned to their native country instead of being dropped off at the Mexican-Guatemala border, where they would immediately turn around and continue their northward journey to the United States. In many cases, many of the aliens were already close to the U.S. border when they were interdicted by Mexican immigration authorities. Because of the agreement that we had with the Mexican authorities for Operation Busbound, they were placed in buses at the cost of the Mexican government and transported to the southern border where they had entered the country of Mexico, the Guatemala-Mexico border. Our agreement with the Mexican authorities at that time and with other countries was that the U.S. government would pay for the transportation from the Mexican-Guatemala border to the country of origin for individuals from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and in some cases we paid for the transportation of individuals all the way back to Ecuador. The cost was very minimal compared to the cost that would have been incurred had they made it to the United States. During a 10-month period, we returned more than 75,000 other than Mexican aliens that were intercepted by Mexican authorities and returned to the southern border. What was effective about this was that, number one, 10% of the individuals that were interdicted, that we were given access to and interviewed, turned out were prior deports or had criminal convictions in the United States, and they were destined for the United States again. Secondly, in being able to return to their native country, they had already spent an exorbitant amount of money, at least for them, in paying smugglers to bring them to the point where they had been intercepted. So it wasn't easy for them to restart the journey again. And our statistics indicate that the U.S. Border Patrol apprehensions at the southwest border were reduced by 43% during that time period that we had Operation Busbound. I will add that it was not only Latin American aliens that were interdicted. There was a number of Iraqis, a number of Syrians, a number of Pakistanis and Indians that were actually arrested by Mexican authorities when they were working with us during that year. The excellent cooperation that had been garnered in working with foreign officials went a long way in getting this operation off the ground. I have to give credit to our officer in charge in Guatemala City, Jorge Eiserman, who came up with a concept and worked diligently. And I will add that Operation Busbound took almost 10 months in the making before we received approval from our headquarters office in Washington, D.C. But once it was implemented, it was a tremendous success. The statistics speak for themselves. The important thing also was that we were able to engender the Mexican authorities, Mexican immigration, to arrest people that were using Mexico as a transit country to come to the United States. It was an effective operation. It was a lot of cooperation between the governments, and it's just an effective way of returning individuals without incurring the cost that we get when we interdict those illegal entrants along our borders. I will add that the cost to the U.S. government in returning those individuals averaged about $20 per person compared to about $2,700 that we were paying at the time had they made it to the United States and been arrested. For removing the 75,000 plus, the U.S. government spent $1.6 million. On the other hand, had they made it into the United States, and for the sake of this particular point, had they been arrested by our immigration authorities and kept in detention, it would have cost us more than $200 million to detain them and remove them and get them back to their native country.